Here we go. Another Tuesday live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. I'm going to give everybody a chance to get in here and get the notifications. Make sure that everyone has gotten their notifications before we get started. There we go. How are you doing today? Go ahead and say hello in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. Cosmopolite, how lovely to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, it looks like notifications are starting to go out. Yay. Okay, well, let's just get the show started. Hello, hello to everyone watching and everyone who's going to be watching the replay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather. Most people call me Nookie. In addition to having an amazing personal life where I celebrate kink and non-monogamy and love and all the wonderful things, I also write books, teach classes and workshops like this about love, sex, romance, and kink for people of all genders, relationship statuses, orientations, and more. I have always been curious and adventurous when it comes to sex, and luckily I've had partners who've been the same. So I've explored many facets of sexuality in loving and creative ways over years, over different states, different cities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every single one of my experiences thus far have led me to the belief that boundaries are the key to not only saving ourselves, but our relationships. They're what take us from getting by or merely average to healthy, loving, strong, and fan-fucking-tastic. So let's get started. I'll kick us off with a quick introduction to the book I'm writing and how I'm writing it. Okay. I am writing my new book, Boundaries Are Sexy as Fuck, right now. And you can get access to the chapters as I write and post them by pre-registering for my Take No Shit workshop beginning Monday, October 17th. That is 6 days from now. And the link is right there on the screen. So I would love to have you join me if you think that what I do here gives you value. Then by all means, join me for that Take No Shit workshop. Super excited about the beta on that one, the release, and sharing my strategies with you. I've been doing a lot of research into the science of psychology and behavior modification and how we can modify our own behavior to get the most out of life. I have practiced on myself, and now I am handing those tools to you in the Take No Shit workshop. So, hey, KS, happy birthday. How wonderful. Lovely of you to join me on your special day. I hope it is fantastic for you. So today we are talking about material boundaries, money, stuff, things, right? Material boundaries are about the things we own and care about. Our homes, our furniture, our favorite jeans are all things that we lay claim to. Speaking of favorite jeans, so in my marriage, my ex-husband had this thing. He never wanted to throw away or get rid of t-shirts. Like, he had t-shirts with holes in them, he had t-shirts with stains on them, but he had a very, very sentimental attachment to these t-shirts. And it drove me insane. And at the time, this was years and years and years ago. So remember it, years ago. I threw several of them away, or I made them into dust claws. Oh, he was upset. He was so upset. And at the time, I didn't understand it. They were old, they were ratty, they were practically rags. I mean, I could say they were hanging off of him in tatters. And really, when it comes right down to it, though, I had no right. I had no right to do anything with his t-shirts, right? That was a material boundary of his that I crossed. And not only did I cross it at the time, but I crossed it and I was unrepentant. I didn't get it. I didn't understand boundaries when it came to me and how I could assert my own. And I certainly didn't understand or honor him when it came to him and his autonomy and ability to make decisions for himself. Anyone have a similar experience? Maybe you don't have to share it. Just maybe in your past, you might have trespassed on somebody's material boundaries, throwing away something you thought maybe they didn't need anymore, and maybe didn't even feel bad about it because it was such a mess. Because I'm betting most everyone out there has done something like that, right? Even if it might be something along the lines of going through somebody's closet looking for something when that is their space, right? And I bet it's happened to you. Somebody came into your room, like, for example, when you were young and you had said, stay out, keep out on the door, or whatever it is, trespassing upon your boundaries. We've all done these things, right? So material boundaries, and it's not just the privacy issue either. It is what we lay claim to, right? And humans, we love to lay claim to stuff, right? Any of you have a table, like your table in a restaurant, right? Or a special seat at the bar that you always go to, or maybe something a little bit less permanent, right? Like you're in line at the cafe and you've been eyeing, the last scone, right? And the person just before you nabs that scone and you can feel that boundary being crossed, even though honestly, you don't really have a right to that boundary. It's still something that we're very, very good at doing, right? Hoarding our stuff, making our stuff important, right? Cosmopolite says, my dad asked me to go through my brother's things and clean out his closet. I threw away stuff that I thought was worthless. My brother was really upset. Yeah, exactly. But we're learning, right? We're learning to do better. We're learning to be better. We're learning to know better. And that's the key, right? Learning how to interact with other humans from a standpoint of autonomy and honoring the human that we see in front of us, or that we adore, or that we don't even really like, but hey, they deserve autonomy too. So then there is, aside from stuff and space, there's money, right? Finances are at the heart of many relationship issues. In fact, money is the third highest cause for divorces after like basic incompatibility and cheating. So We're going to talk about the 7 different ways of thinking about material possessions that, wow, that's loud, that limit what you will share or give with and to whom. So today we're going to be talking about money. That's what I want, right? Where do you get your stuff? Bitch better have my money. Borrowing and lending things. Saving the world one shopping bag at a time. Like, do you recycle, bring your own bags, purchase environmentally aware things? What's mine is mine. What is yours? What is mine? And what is ours? Do you condo or do you hoard? Every one of us has personal values about accumulating and letting go of stuff, right? Is cleanliness next to godliness? How do you maintain and how do you clean your stuff? And what do you expect? So, all of us come into relationships with ideas about money and material things that we bring. So, what are those? What are we bringing into relationships with us? Any questions that you might have, pop them into the chat. I'll be happy to take a look at them. I'm going to just dig right in. Okay, so money. That's what I want. How do you get your money? It's a topic so fascinating to people that one of the first casual questions at many mixers and events is, so what do you do? You know, they're not asking if you're like a semi-professional speed knitter, right? Or whether you go ice fishing in Minnesota every winter, right? They're asking, what do you do for money? What is your job? And when it comes to money, most people work for it, right? They have a job or a business that brings in money in exchange for goods or services. Some people had a job or a business, and now they simply enjoy the fruits of their labor or manage their money to grow it. And some people, some lucky people, have received money through a windfall or an inheritance. And I'm guessing, as I was mentioning these different ways of getting money, opinions, judgments, and thoughts ran through your mind. Maybe just a little bit. Like, ooh, must be nice to get your money the easy way, right? Through a windfall or through inheritance. Think about that though. Good or bad, value judgments about how people get their money. So, this is the first area that we explore. Do you have prejudices towards certain types of money sources, like specific job types? Like, what would you think if I said to you, oh, I make money because I'm a lawyer? That's my job. What if I say, I'm a drug dealer? Doctor? Food service? Sex worker? Manual labor? Instagram influencer? Any of those poke at your judgment button? And if so, that's something to consider when moving forward in your life. How would you feel if someone close to you did any of those things as their primary job or business? How would you feel if someone close to you inherited money from a relative and spent their time doing nothing, or managing their finances or investing? Would that make you feel some sort of way about them or about yourself when you're around them? What if somebody close to you inherited a bunch of money and they stopped working, but you had to keep working? Roger says, my ex was of the opinion that what was mine was hers and what was hers. In other words, everything was hers. Yeah, absolutely. And she can have that opinion as much as she wants to. It's your opinion that matters. And when you're setting up a relationship, what are your boundaries? How do you choose to share or not share in whatever material goods, right? That is what matters. How do you set the stage moving forward? Okay. Next, bitch better have my money. So, how many relationships have ended because someone didn't pay you back what you thought you were owed? Or, and be honest here, because you didn't pay someone back or give them what they were owed. If you said none, go potty, get yourself a glass of water or whatever, and congratulate yourself on being incredibly self-aware around how you lend and pay back material goods. But if you've lost more than none friendships over borrowing and lending, it's worth thinking through your personal experiences and setting some clear boundaries, right? Under what circumstances are you willing to loan money? Like to a friend or a family member, or to a stranger at a bar. If someone borrows something, how do you expect to get it back? Better than before, like a full tank of gas in a car, with a gift, or just as is? If someone breaks something they borrowed from you, what do you expect to happen? An apology? An offer of payment? Replacement of the item? How do you feel when people do not pay you what you're owed or don't repay a loan? And of course, the other side of this is, how do you feel when you're the person borrowing, owing, or breaking? Cobalt says, my cousin is a trust fund baby and he never helped me even when I was homeless. Right? So that tells you a lot about your cousin's thoughts on material boundaries. So from my personal life, whoops, sorry about that. Actually, Roger, if I lend money to someone, I just expect I probably won't get it back. That way I can't be disappointed. That is actually what I consider a very healthy response. I don't lend somebody something that I can't afford not to get back. And I don't expect to get it back. I usually give it to them. It's easier that way. So a personal experience of mine is that someone I know was homeless for a while. And I told them very, very clearly, I will help you when I can with the things that I can help you with, right? So they asked several times for money. Sometimes I said, absolutely, here's money. They always said they would pay it back. Every single time. Every single time I just gave it to them. They would do things like I would invite them over for dinner and I would pay or I would cook. I would allow them to come over and wash their clothes in our washing machine and dry them in our dryer. And, spend some time here in the middle of summer when it was hot outside and we had air conditioning, right? What I did not do, I felt I was not able to do, was offer them a place to live, right? We have space, but I don't think that would have been good for our relationship. My relationship with my friend, it would not have been good for my relationship with my partner. It would have been difficult to have us all in one place. But I went out of my way and I made adjustments and plans for them to also get assistance from other places, and connected them with people who were able to get them assistance and get them workman's comp that they didn't think they were going to be able to get, and so on and so forth. So I did the things that I felt like I could do when I could do them, but I couldn't do everything. I can't do everything, right? Some of that is material boundaries, right? Like I could only give so much money. Some of that is personal space and time boundaries. I couldn't, for example, have them over constantly and all of the time because I need to be alone sometimes, right? And also, I have other friends and people that I love and adore that I want to be able to spend time with. So, some people would, like Cobalt says, you went above and beyond, right? Some people would say, well, if this was your friend, you could have done so much more. Maybe I could have. Would it have been good for me? Would it have been healthy for me? And even turning this around, would it have been good and helpful for them? Would it have changed our friendship in a positive way? I mean, I know people who have, in fact, I've done it before, who have allowed people to stay with them, and it turned out very positively. Got them back up on their feet. Fantastic. I also know people, and I've had this happen before, where they allowed people to stay with them. And the more that the other person got, the more that they wanted to take, and the more they felt they deserved. It can go either way, right? It's important to set your boundaries. Okay, so saving the world, one shopping bag at a time. So do you personally care about saving the world or the environment? Do you prioritize that over your own convenience or pleasure? And if so, how much and how often? Right? So there are four main types of environmental considerations that affect material boundaries. Biospheric, caring about the environment. Recycling, sorting your recycling, subscribing to a composting service, reducing waste, spending money on eco-friendly products, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Altruistic, caring about others. How much are you willing to give in material goods to what you consider good causes? Like, do you tithe at your church? Do you donate to food banks or shelters? What about to people on the street? How are you willing to help them with material resources, if at all? Then there's egoistic, caring about personal resources, like stocking up on products, doomsdayers, right? To make sure that you have a certain amount for yourself and your relationships or family before spending more on green products or before donating to causes or before doing anything beyond that. And then there's hedonic, caring about pleasure and comfort. So, do you put a priority on your personal pleasure so that you're willing to spend material resources on it? So, for example, do you often choose experiences such as travel or eating out over your biospheric, environmental, or altruistic, caring about others ideals? So, interestingly enough, and this is not necessarily specifically related to material things, but I think it does tie in well here. Studies have shown over and over and over again that when people get extra money, retail therapy actually is not a good return on investment. Buying things generally means that you buy something and immediately once you buy it, it is at the peak best of how you feel about it. And it all goes downhill from there, right? Whereas spending money and resources on experiences, actually the value goes up over time because while you're on that experience, maybe you're traveling, you're not going to categorize the annoying things that happen, like getting stuck in an airport or whatever. And instead, you're going to tend to remember all of the good things that happen. And over the years, that is something that grows in value and creates additional happiness and contentment. So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. Often you'll find, though, that even in your own mind, there are things in direct conflict with each other. So you're going to make different choices on different days. For example, you care about the plight of the pangolin, right? And your finances are tight. It's often a choice between giving to a cause and giving up something yourself, which is difficult sometimes, right? How you feel about material things and the environment will affect your decision-making processes. And if your partner feels differently and allocates materials differently, it can be a big source of conflict. Now, my partner and I discussed at the beginning of our relationship the types of things we care about related to the environment. So do we use paper towels? Yes, but we tend to also keep lots and lots of reusable rags around so that most of our cleaning and picking up is with reusable rags. We use cloth napkins, for example. We do recycle. I thrift. He's not so much of a thrifter. I reuse things, right? So we talked about what efforts we're willing to go through. He's willing to spend a lot more money on buying green versus living more green. So there's a balance between us, and we sort of um, job those things out to the person more suited. Cosmopolite says, I don't think people think about things like recycling when it comes to compatibility, but those sorts of things can really matter to some people because it goes back to their core values. Absolutely. 100%. And then there's also the how much are you willing to bend? How far out of your way are you willing to go for your partner? Because like some people might say, oh, I'm willing to buy my partner flowers once a week or whatever, but I'm not willing to put in the extra effort for recycling. Whereas for a very green-minded partner, the recycling might actually feel like more of a romantic gesture than getting flowers. So then it also talks, goes into, are we talking each other's material boundaries languages, right? Love languages, boundaries languages, whatever. Roger says, I've given money to someone on the street many times claiming they needed money for gas, only to see them 2 weeks later asking me for money again. That's annoying. So that's a great example. Thank you for bringing it up. The way I look at it is this. I don't ever give anybody money on the street for anything. I give them money. That's it. What they choose to do with that money, once it is theirs, is entirely up to them. I give it because at that moment, I feel generous and it feels good of me to give, and I have the money to do so. Once I hand it to them, they can go get gas, they could go get candy bar, they could go get alcohol. I mean, it's entirely possible that they could go get something that's not good for them. Drugs, maybe, whatever. That's not my call at that point. Once I give something to someone, it's up to them how they choose to use it. So, yeah. Cobalt says, I'm one who cares about the environment, but needs come first. So I support single-use straw bans accepting for disabled folk. Absolutely. Right. So making those decisions matter. Talking about them, thinking about them matter. What's mine is mine. You're human. Therefore, you're a naturally possessive creature. You separate the world into what is mine and what is not mine. And when people cross those boundaries, intentionally or unintentionally, you feel it. It's natural. Just look at the world, right? This is my country, my state, my city, my neighborhood, my property, my home, my room, my drawer, my team, right? My jacket, my t-shirts, right? My seat in front of the TV. In a relationship, the lines of what is mine and what is yours and what is ours can get blurred, even if you don't cohabitate. So let's talk about some of these, right? So, interviews I've done about boundaries. Here's some of the examples that came up. We spend the night at each other's place a few times per week. We keep toothbrushes and basic things in both places because it just makes sense. I bought some of my favorite coffee to keep at their place because I don't love theirs. And one day it was missing, even though there should have been plenty left. I asked them about it, and they said they'd used it for an all-nighter 2 nights before. That caused a fight that almost led to a breakup because I couldn't understand how they thought that was okay. Coffee. But I get it, right? Like, you put something in a particular place for a reason, and then it's not there when you want it or need it. What if that coffee is way more expensive than the coffee they usually buy? What if they don't replace that coffee, right? It's the little things that'll trip us up. Here's another one. This actually reminded me of me. My partner used a few of my old teas for cleaning rags. When I got mad, they told me they'd done it months ago and I never noticed. So obviously they didn't understand. I mean, I get it. That sounds like something I might have said to my ex, right? I took that tea and I used it to, I don't know, clean down the kitchen or something 3 months ago. And you're just now noticing it's gone. Why are you so upset? You obviously don't wear it. Oof, cringe, right? That was theirs. It wasn't mine to do anything with. Here's one. On my birthday, I found a card in my underwear drawer from a family member who didn't live with me. I felt violated and pissed that they invaded my space like that. They said, well, I just wanted to put it somewhere the kids wouldn't get it. How would you feel if you knew that one of your family members went into your home while you were gone and put a birthday card in your underwear drawer? Oof. Yeah, that's a big, big no-no. I have dinner parties every now and again and attend them whenever I can. And there are 2 kinds of dinner party people. Please help me clean up, even imperfectly. I'll love you for it. And don't touch my stuff. You'll do it wrong and drive me crazy. Right? A friend of mine hates it when people try to clean up after he feeds them because they stack the plates. He doesn't have a dishwasher. And so then he has to wash both sides of the plate by hand. And they get goop on them and they get stuck together and so on and so forth. So he says, leave it where it is. I will take care of it. Don't touch my stuff. You'll do it wrong and drive me crazy. Right? And then another one. A friend borrowed one of my favorite books and returned it with bent corners on certain pages. What kind of monster does that? So none of these examples might fit you, or maybe all of them do and more. The point is being clear with how you feel about stuff, no matter how silly you might think it is, and being able to communicate that. If you hate people getting into your medicine cabinet looking for aspirin, let people know that. Or alternatively, create a space in your home for some of the basics that visitors might need, stock it well, and tell them where to look, right? And when you cohabitate with someone else, things get even more blurred. especially if one of you moves into the other's space or one of you brings more furniture and possessions into your shared space. Like, what happens if I spill red wine on your new pink velvet chair, right? Or how will I feel if you scratch my antique tabletop? What if one of your friends breaks my Waterford crystal picture? Or if they shrink your favorite shirt? What if they hog your covers? The possibilities are endless with how mine can cause trouble in our relationships. And it's even worse when we have a different material style than our partners. Roger says, don't mess with Texas. Absolutely. And Cobalt says, I had someone walk out of a dinner date because I took something off her plate without asking. Ugh, cringe now, but I was young. Yeah, absolutely. There are people who, like, we'll go out with a bunch of people and we'll say, okay, the best thing at this restaurant is everybody orders a dish or two and we all share. And some people are so not comfortable with that. Fine. They get to order exactly what they want. The rest of us can pass things around, right? But to try to force that, I mean, there are even times my partner and I share constantly, but there are times when we've been out. We were, where were we? We were traveling to the mountains, I think, on a camping trip, and we went into like a little shop, and I said, "Hey, would you like to, get one of these and share?" And he said, "We don't have to share all the time." And I'm like, "You're right. Of course not. I'm not assuming, but do feel free to remind me if it ever does seem like I'm assuming, right? Just let me know. So that way you don't feel like I'm forcing this on you when there are times when you feel like I want this whole thing to myself. You get what you want. It's easy. Unless it's not, because you're not used to speaking up. So, do you condo or do you hoard? Right? Do you Marie Kondo and get rid of things that don't spark joy, or are you a hoarder? The answer is probably not that simple because most of us have our secret hoards of things, right? Plastic bags, children's drawings, concert t-shirts, rubber bands, crafting supplies, magazine issues, sports equipment, whatever. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about collections. Those are a different story entirely. A collection is something you add to intentionally. It makes space in your life for so you can enjoy it. I mean, things we acquire, buy, store, and move from place to place without ever really enjoying them, but we keep them just in case or because it's wasteful to get rid of it. Partners in life and love will have different values over keeping things and letting them go. And when the keep all the things people start overflowing on the I like a clear space people, you'll both start to feel uncomfortable without fully realizing why. You have a balance that you feel comfortable with, that feels like home. And so do all of your family, friends, and partners. And it's mixing those together and figuring out how to make it work that makes the difference. Cobalt says, yeah, it was the not asking that was bad. I enjoy sharers. I grew up with food insecurity, so I don't like to waste food. Absolutely. Absolutely. I unlearned the idea of wasting food. I used to hate wasting food. I was raised to not waste food ever. But then I got to a point where I realized that with my ADHD, and I didn't realize this at the time because I didn't realize it was ADHD, but I realized that I could either waste some food or never really eat well at all because I needed to buy ingredients that I could make into food, and that wouldn't always happen. But if I didn't buy the ingredients, I wouldn't have the food, then I'd have to eat out all the time. We have to make these decisions about what we are willing to do, what steps we're willing to take when it comes to material things, right? Is cleanliness next to godliness? Do you subscribe to the idea that happiness is a clean house? Or is it good enough to do dishes when you run out of them? I personally go with clean enough to be healthy and dirty enough to be happy. But everyone's going to have their personal levels of what is clean and what is not. And even more than just what clean is, how does clean work for you? Because if you're a do a little cleaning every day person so that it never gets away from you, versus living with a mad rush because we have company type of person, you might have some challenges, right? Because the do a little cleaning every day person will feel things getting dirtier and it'll drive them a bit batty. But the mad rush, because we have company person, might start to feel like their partner's constantly trying to show them up or pressure them into cleaning differently. Or the do a little cleaning every day person feels that things are like being kept up, but the mad rush, because we have company person, has higher standards for company, and they feel like the do a little everyday person is not sensing the same urgency, right? Cleaning and maintenance. It's not just about clean and dirty, though, right? It's about how we maintain our material goods. Like anyone can tell you that washing the outside of a car regularly will help keep it in better condition over time. Handling a stain quickly will help keep it from setting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm betting you've had at least one major relationship blowout argument in your life because of cleaning and maintenance of shared living space. I'm betting. Probably more than one by a factor of a fucking lot. Knowing how you feel about these things and discussing those types of material boundaries in your relationship can make the conflict easier to deal with when it comes up. And I'm going to pop this into the chat. There is a let me see, where is it? So there's a my brain is going blank. There is an article. I can't pop it into the chat because I don't know where the link is. But there's an article out there called "She Divorced Me Because I Left Dishes by the Sink," right? And the guy was saying that over time, he just kept putting the glasses by the sink instead of putting them into the dishwasher or into the sink or whatever it was. And he says his wife left him because he kept doing that. But he knows it's not that he was putting the dishes by the sink. He knows it's because his wife had expressed over and over and over again a boundary, a desire, a need to be heard, to be recognized, and to be honored about those dishes, right? And he just ignored it. It didn't matter to him. It didn't matter that every single time she saw that glass by the sink, it was one more time that he had ignored her preferences, right? And in the article itself, I feel like he gets very close to getting it. And yet he still misses the greater picture of consent and boundaries and showing people that you love them through every fucking action you take, right? But if you're interested in it, I highly recommend that you take a look at it. And I'm actually going to find the, here we go. There is the link. I'm going to pop that into the chat right there. You can do a search for it. She Divorced Me Because I Left Dishes by the Sink by Matthew Frey. I highly recommend it. It's an interesting read if you've missed that one so far. And you can see how ignoring people's even little itty bitty teeny tiny boundaries that you don't think matter can add up over time. So, hello, Sabyasachi. How are you doing today? It's lovely to see you. Hello, Sir Thomas. Lovely to see you. My ex-husband and I fought once, both insisting that we each did the lion's share of housework. So we went over what we each did, and it was things we personally wanted clean, so we realized we valued different things. Ding! Right there. Very, very important. Yeah. Okay, let's see. So, what do you expect? This is the touchy question, because what you expect is by definition what you consider probable or certain. And if you consider something in a relationship probable or certain, you'll rarely bring it up or request it. This is what trips us up, right? Your expectations around material things are set in childhood and shaped over the years and decades of socialization, culture, and personal experiences. And guess what? So are theirs. It's not so easy to overcome those things because honestly, many of us don't want to, right? Just like Cobalt just said, you find out all of a sudden you value different things when it comes to cleanliness, right? Now, are you going to collaborate on those things together and say, well, hey, you're doing this and I'm doing this, and somehow everything's getting clean? This is fantastic, right? Or you're going to try to fight and grab and push and pull in order to get it the way that you want it because you have expectations. Mm-hmm. Sabyasachi says, it's interesting you mentioned this, Miss Nookie. I've known multiple domestic violence cases have occurred over the kitchen dishes in dishwasher. Exactly, right? That's actually something I talk about in the book when I'm talking about fickle boundaries, right? The idea that oftentimes things like how you put dishes in the dishwasher don't actually matter when they're not paying attention. Like, do I care how my partner puts dishes in the dishwasher? If he's putting dishes in the dishwasher and cleaning things up, I don't care. I don't care at all. But here's something really funny. I find myself caring if I go over and watch. We have this running joke. I love to cook. Love it. He does too. He's a great cook. But I do a lot of like the daily cooking, and he does, he cooks with me on special stuff, and I have him cook all the meats. He's got special things that he's really good at. But when I'm doing my daily cooking, he'll come in, wander into the kitchen, no idea what I'm making. And he'll walk over and he'll watch me for a few minutes, and then he'll say, why are you doing it like that? And so I say to him, I'm like, do you have any idea what I'm doing? And he'll say, no, it just doesn't look right. And at this point, it's actually an ongoing joke, right? It's because if you're not watching and things get done, it doesn't really matter how, right? Because they're done and they're delicious and the food is good. But when you're watching and you see somebody doing something a different way than you were taught or whatever, it gets you. Like, there was a huge kerfuffle in, I don't know, some Facebook group because people were sharing some of the things that they carved. And some of the people were carving with the knife heading towards them, right? And some people were carving with the knife always pointed away, right? And the people that were carving with the knife pointed towards them were getting like chided for having the knife coming towards them. Now, some of these people were new, and this is how, their uncle or their grandfather or whatever had taught them. And some of these people were the uncle, the grandfather, the great grandfather who had been carving with the knife towards them their entire lives. They learned how to do that. They're good at it. They make beautiful items. And yet, the people who focus on knife away felt a need to get up in their grills and say, this is not how it's done. And not only that, but to say, you should not ever do this. You should never post pictures of this because people will see it and try to do the same thing and they will hurt themselves and it will be all your fault. Now, the knife away people might have seen carvings from these other people numerous times and never once stop to think, is this carving crappy because the person used a different technique? Didn't matter until they saw it. Then they got mad. And it didn't matter if it worked for the other person because they got mad. Humans, we're fucking weird, right? Weird. Cobalt says, I can't stand to watch my roommate fix my computer. So I'm the techie one. And when my partner's doing things, I want to, if you just, no. And I will literally say, I'm just going to look away. And if you need my help, let me know. Yeah. I'm probably too easygoing. Very little bothers me. My ex liked to joke she knew just how far she could push before I would blow up. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being easygoing or very little bothering you. I think that there is a problem with somebody thinking that they should be able to push you a certain amount, right? Why do they want to push you at all? Why don't they just love you the way you are and accept your decisions? That said, I do feel like boundaries are all about the small stuff. And it means if something is going to bother you, always stand up for it. Period. End of story. But then there's also, you don't need to blow up. So that's also on you. Do you need to blow up? Or do you need to just say, no, we're not talking about this anymore. That's my boundary. Period. End of story. I was actually just writing about this today. Do you know your monster? Do you know the part of you that is going to blow up? The stranger, as Billy Joel calls it. Or on the other side of things, do you know your kicked puppy? Do you know the part of you inside that when things happen is going to run away and hide or cower or try to crumple your own boundaries in order to get through whatever traumatic situation is happening? So neither one of those things is the ideal. The ideal is to simply be able to say, that's a no for me. And no matter how much you push, it's still going to be a no for me. Do with that as you will, right? Cobalt says, sometimes you got to keep scrolling and, oh no, someone is wrong on the internet. Yeah. When someone's wrong on the internet, man, I got feels. I'm better about it than I used to be. I promise. Okay, so here's the thing. Even if we don't love our own way of doing things or think it's good, we often can't resist telling others how to handle stuff and money because it feels like they're doing it wrong, right? Even when we know we're doing it wrong. So if you want to get it right in a relationship, it means checking your expectations about material stuff with your partner. Let's start with an easy one, okay? And any of you in the chat who are willing to participate, answer this question. Who pays for dates? Right? Who pays for dates? When you're dating, who pays for dates? Because if you and your potential partners don't agree on that, you will likely not agree on much related to finances and possessions. Or, frankly, you won't find out because you're not going to make it past dating, right? Who pays for dates? And your expectations here can get in the way of how you connect if you simply assume one answer and your date assumes another. Roger says, me, I pay for dates, right? What else? What are the other options? Me. Okay, so here are a few possible answers. The man always pays. That's very heteronormative, and it's very sexist. I don't know. But it's also very traditional. And if two people agree to that, is it wrong? Right? Cobalt says, I have an ex who insisted on being generous while dating, and once married turned out to be stingy. Putting up a front. Yeah. What about the idea that I always pay, either for the date or for myself? Somebody who feels I don't rely on anyone or owe anyone anything, right? So, Roger, how would you feel if you went on a date with somebody and they said, oh, I always pay? I either pay for the date entirely or I pay for myself because I don't like relying on anyone or owing anyone anything. Would that be a good match for you? Here's another one. Whoever asks for the date should pay. This is the one I tend to go with, although some people say that that's unfair because it's almost always the masculine partner who asks for a date in heteronormative situations. Maybe. What about going Dutch? There are a lot of people who feel very strongly about going Dutch, and there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about not going Dutch. Taking turns. I got you this time. You can get it next time. And then there's splitting your date costs based on your actual income. So for example, if one person makes 40K and the other one makes 120K, the overall date cost gets split 25% to 75%, either per date or over time. And that's the easy, right? So there's more. How do you expect to merge finances with your partner? Do you expect to merge finances with your partner? Will both of you work? And does that answer change if you have children? Do you expect to have a say in big purchases? And what's a big purchase? Over $100? Over $1,000? Over $10,000? If you get married, do you expect to purchase real estate together? Do you expect to travel together? And if so, who pays? What are your expectations about quality or standard of life? You're going to find out that you have expectations in a relationship that you never realized, and more will crop up during your life as you go through different stages. Steps 6 through 8 of the relationship escalator model. I'm going to put that into the chat, and I'll put that up here on the screen. Address material expectations around relating. 6, merging, moving in together, sharing a home and finances, getting engaged to be married or equivalent, may happen before, during, or after commitment. 7, conclusion, getting married, legally if possible, and having children, not mandatory, but strongly socially venerated. The relationship is now finalized, and its structure is expected to remain static until one partner dies. Nope, this also includes finances as part of the relationship structure. And then 8, legacy, buying a home, having and raising children, no longer as required as it once was, but often couples may not feel or be perceived as fully valid until they've hit that additional benchmark post-marriage. There's your relationship escalator. And if you have subscribed or been socialized to the relationship escalator, those are what you expect from a relationship and the steps that you take as you go through life together. Yeah. So, material boundaries. I've covered a lot about material boundaries. There's actually still more to cover at some point in the future, perhaps. Do we have any additional questions on material boundaries and the types of things that we need to know, we need to think about? While I'm waiting to see if you have any additional questions, I am going to pop that link up again into, for those of you who um, are not aware, I am currently writing a book. It's called Boundaries Are Sexy as Fuck. That is the working title. I'm not sure that's going to be the final title, but that is the working title. And I am writing it chapter by chapter. I haven't posted today's yet. Live. So you could actually access the book live, chapter by chapter, by joining the Take No Shit workshop, the Build Better Boundaries workshop, next week, starting next Monday. So 6 days from now, we're going to be starting that workshop. Super excited about this. And it's cheap. Right now, you can get it for as low as $7. $7. That's hardly anything. And that is going to be a 7-week workshop. So that is $1 per week for this first time only. This is the beta run of this workshop. If you feel that the value is worth it, you could purchase that workshop for up to $27. That's the full price for this first beta. I'm allowing you to name your price. And if you feel it'd be worth it, you can spend up to $27. That would be just under $4 per week to get in on this beta workshop. And I'm telling you, I talk about the boundaries book as everything related to boundaries, like all of this stuff I just talked about and more that I didn't talk about, just related to material boundaries. Whereas the workshop is more like a quick and dirty get in. We are building boundaries. So we're going to start off strong. We're going to get through that workshop. And at the end of the 7 weeks, you're going to have built and solidly fortified anywhere between 3 and maybe 5 or 7 boundaries for yourself that are important to you. You will have learned interesting psychological tricks to help keep you strong and to help you maintain and enforce those boundaries. You will learn ways to move past trauma and to make sure that those boundaries are well set in place for you, and how to handle boundaries when it comes to feeling like you're in the middle of crisis and somebody is pushing. We're going to give you all of the tools to move forward with that and help support you along the way. So super excited about that. Would love to have you in there. And please feel free to ask any questions about that if you have any. I do not see any additional questions coming in, so I am going to get ready to sign off. Let me tell you a little bit about what is coming up. So Thursday, we're going to be talking about sexual boundaries. Now, remember, Thursday afternoons is lunchtime on the West Coast, so that will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so 2 p.m. Eastern, sexual boundaries is going to be the topic of discussion. And then next Tuesday is going to be lunchtime on the East Coast, and that is going to be back again at noon. So noon on Tuesdays, 2 p.m. on Thursdays. And that will be, do you put yourself first? And we're going to talk very in depth about this, because one of the things that I like to say in my book and in pretty much everything is that the prime directive in any relationship is to care for and protect our own hearts and minds, and to create our relationships in the sweet spot, which means that we have to put ourselves and our boundaries first when building relationships and creating the connections that we do. So super excited about that one. So sexual boundaries on Thursdays, keep on Thursday coming up, keep an eye out for that. And then on the following Tuesday, do you put yourself first? So thank you very much to all of you for joining me today. Again, I'm Nookie or Heather Claus. I'm currently writing my next book, Boundaries Are Sexy as Fuck. Join me with that link in the chat. And my workshop's beginning. 6 more days. Super duper excited. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you. Have a most wonderful day. And hopefully I'll see you on Thursday. Bye, y'all.